So the 1.2 patch dropped. It brought us a new incursion called Clear Sky. It gave us a newer Dark Zone bracket and it allowed us to go back into the PvE area of the game to complete new, smaller missions there and also be properly rewarded for it. So how is the game right now? I of course made a video a while back saying that it wasn't worth the grind anymore. But that was of course back when the 1.1 patch was around. But things have changed a little bit and today I want to talk about what the 1.2 patch did for the game. The good and of course the bad. So let's start this off with the part of the game that I've spent the most time on by far. And that is the Dark Zone. A brief summary of the newer bracket would be that enemies are now level 32 to level 34. And truly something to be afraid of if you're not entirely min-maxed out already. But in return, the rewards and the loot in this Dark Zone are also worth your while. Almost every upgrade of gear or weapons that I've gotten since the 1.2 patch, they either came from the Dark Zone or from Falcon Lost. And I do really feel like that I'm properly rewarded for things such as going after the supply drops. I mean, in the DZ05 and the DZ06 area, they grant guaranteed 240 gear set items, which of course attracts a lot of people and creates a certain sense of excitement. Do I get the crate first? Is he going to get it? Should I go for it? Should I go rogue? Is he going rogue? I mean, everybody wants those drops, but only one team can get it, right? Another great addition to the Dark Zone are the sealed caches. These sealed caches, they don't let you know what exactly you picked up. But if you picked them up in a DZ05 and a DZ06 area, you know that it's going to be a 240 gear set item or a 204 weapon. It keeps players in that circle of looting items, extracting items and further building their character. It makes you want to extract things that you usually wouldn't want to extract. In addition to that, the sealed caches also give you those Dark Zone funds and most importantly, even more Division tech. Division tech is so plentiful right now that other materials such as electronics and tools are actually becoming the bottleneck when it comes down to crafting. Now that of course is just a byproduct of them being very generous in the Dark Zone, you know, giving out a lot of that Division tech. So obviously another type of crafting material was going to be the bottleneck. A very simple solution to this would be to just allow players to transfer gold Division tech into gold crafting materials of any kind. But again, this is not something I'm too worried about. I have to say though that I haven't really seen much interesting interaction with the rope cutting mechanic. As I thought before the 1.2 patch, it didn't change the Dark Zone too much. If you want to take someone else's loot, that's usually still the best way to just kill them and then cut the rope, because if you do it beforehand, then they're gonna shoot you and, you know, kill you. Even with my 500k toughness and survivor link and a couple of first aids, it's quite impossible to cut the rope before they shoot you down, so that's never really an option to do. I feel like the rope cutting mechanic is more of a way to add insult to injury because it's primarily used by teams of 4 who steamroll the other players at the extraction zone, and then where previously the other players would at least be able to get their loot, now, after dying, they also lose everything because of course now the other players can just cut the rope. It might be different in the lower Dark Zone brackets, where players are a little bit closer to each other in terms of skill and in terms of gear. But in the 200 plus brackets, you have those teams of 4 that play way too much, kinda, you know, like myself, I play way too much. But then you also have those guys who aren't even gear score 200 yet, but they have that one item in their inventory or in their stash that pushes them into this bracket. As much as I'd like to think that the rope cutting idea was, you know, cool, I don't really think it adds much to the game itself and makes the game quite a pain for some of the more casual players. I gotta applaud Massive though for making the gear score work so that it only calculates one weapon towards your gear score. That is what I've been suggesting multiple times, and I think that it was the correct choice to prevent players from de-leveling. But with the rope cutting feature, it also makes it quite a punishing experience for those who are not at the top of their bracket. Overall, I think if you want to be successful in the 200 plus Dark Zone bracket, you will also need a team of 2, 3 or 4 players. NPCs hit so hard that it's not really possible for the solo player to clear a lot of those landmarks. And if you do, you will usually be spending an hour or so just to get a full loot back, which makes it even more harsh if you lose all of that to a 4-man squad just running by, killing you, and then cutting the rope. I think that's just something that is worth looking into. Overall though, I'm pretty positive about the Dark Zone, no doubt about that. One thing I'm a little bit less enthusiastic about is the new Incursion. I don't want to go and say that it is too easy or too short or anything like that, because what you have to keep in mind is that when we did Falcon Lost for the first time, we had much worse gear than that we have right now. And thus, the level 32 purple enemies, those were a lot harder to take down. Also, the length of the Incursion, I think that's fine as well. A lot of the complaints that people had with Falcon Lost is that it is just the same thing over and over and over again with the waves. So I guess what they did with Clear Sky is that instead of having to shoot and launch the thing with the computer 4 times and bring the caches to the boxes 4 times, they made it so that you only have to do it once, and thus you're not repeating the same thing over and over and over again, adding nothing but length. The thing I am a little bit disappointed with, however, is that yet again, we haven't really seen any new interesting gameplay mechanics. Clear Sky was even less interesting than Falcon Lost, where we at least had drones that would be able to stun us and stuff like that. I feel like the incursions add nothing to the game that I haven't already seen in the main missions. I'm still waiting for those special enemies with maybe electronic shields or something that have to be taken out in a certain way, within a very limited time frame and all that stuff. Enemies that do not care about your damage, enemies that dish out more crowd control, or can only die when under the effect of certain crowd control effects. You know, things like that. And I can understand why this wouldn't be possible in the Dark Zone or during the story missions, as those enemies would, you know, it would be very difficult for the solo player to complete those missions. But these incursions, they are specifically aimed at coordinated 4-man groups being able to communicate and make strategies, and I feel like that there's so much more that you can do if you set those requirements. Clear Sky has unfortunately, yet again, not met my expectations that I had for the incursions. Now, moving on to the high value targets brought to the PvE side of things, where players are able to kill small groups of enemies to collect intel, which they can then spend at the vendors in the base of operations for contracts to take down high value targets. Now, I personally haven't really bothered with the daily ones simply because the rewards for those are nothing but Phoenix credits. I feel that Phoenix credits are not really that useful anymore, of course, because I can get all my new items from the loot drops in the Dark Zone, and because the recalibration is done through normal credits. The blueprints you can buy with the Phoenix credits, they aren't really good because they are on 240 gear score, and the weapons at the vendors are most of the time overpriced and poorly rolled. I do feel like that this all is another byproduct of them being so generous, and I'm not too worried about this. I'm sure that the Phoenix credits will be relevant again with the next update, and at least we can save up to 2,000 of them right now, so that's going to help out a bit. But that's off topic. We gotta go back to the high value targets. As I said, I haven't really been bothered with doing the dailies, but the weekly ones that I did, those were actually pretty cool and pretty challenging. It was nothing too complex, it was just, you know, the normal enemies, but they definitely hit hard and you need some teamwork to take them down. Aside from that, killing the NPCs in the PvE area to get our intel also shows off a bit more of the map other than just the Dark Zone, which I'm pretty happy about, because I always thought that the map looked great, but then so much of it is unexplored because there is no reason to go everywhere other than the intel. Which is actually a funny story because I just started collecting the intel right now, not because of the intel. I find those to be, you know, quite pop culture-ish and very cliche-like, also, you know, seen in movies. But I collect the intel mainly to see the whole map because it looks so good and it's quite cool to explore it all. You should give it a try. Now, for this video, I will not be going into some of the smaller issues currently still present in the game, like for example the newer bugs such as the UI glitch and the stash size, you know, that needs increasing. I'm not gonna go over that simply because I wanted to give my thoughts on what they gave us with this update and not repeat again what is still left to do. As always, I will see you guys later, or like they say in the Netherlands. See you later!